Hey YouTube, my name is Outdoors here. We're going to be unboxing a new compressor from TOAUTO. This is the A1X-PRO PCP compressor. And right off the bat, it's got a lot of packaging. Which, you know, it's annoying for an unboxing video that want to be nice and quick and smooth. But when it comes to protecting your piece of machinery that's going to be going through who knows what carrier and dude throwing it around, that's a good thing. Alright. First off, nice thick corrugated cardboard. You've got your spare parts. This does have one of the smaller filters that I'm not the biggest fan of. And it does have extra burst discs, which is nice. I don't see that in a lot of these machines. User manual that nobody reads. And nice and packed with plenty of styrofoam in there, which is a good sign. Alright. So, let's look at the features here. We do have a built-in inverter, which is great. I love them. I hate having to carry them around. So you can go straight off the wall, or you can go straight off of a 12-volt battery. You do have your exposed burst disc, also good. You have your bleed valve here, which you always have, and your Foster fitting, which is great. On the back, you do have a couple more things. You've got your on-off switch. This is not typically... typically, you actually have two on these. One that turns on the inverter and the fans, and then one that turns on the compressor itself, but I think that it's just this one. And then you also have the temperature gauge. On top, you have your pressure gauge, which is in bar, so not PSI. It's important to know the difference between and how to measure them, otherwise you're going to overfill your stuff. And this one does not have an auto shut-off, so just be aware of that. You need to understand where you're filling to in bar, and you need to keep an eye on this while you're filling to make sure you don't overfill. If you do, you're going to burst the burst disc here, which is why it's there. It's a safety feature so that you don't explode the entire unit. But you know, even blowing those, it's very loud, and it's kind of scary, to be honest, as someone who has done it before. But typically, you know, you'll be fine. So let's dive into the features of this a little bit, get it set up here, and get it up and running for you. If I recall, this one goes to 4,500 PSI. Yeah, 300 bar, 4,500 PSI, which is great. But again, that's very high pressure, and this does not have an auto shut off, so keep that in mind. Oh, also, I forgot to do my disclosure. TOAUTO did send this unit to me. They didn't pay me for reviewing it or anything like that, but it was sent to me free of charge. So there's my disclosure, or whatever you want to call it. But you know, that's pretty normal. Alright, let's plug this in. Plug our other end into the wall here. Now, how these work, in case you haven't... Oh. Okay, we're gonna wait to plug it in. So this one, as soon as you plug it in, it fires up the fans. Because these fans are normally pretty loud, we probably won't be able to have any audio while it's going on, so I want to explain how you set this up to fill your gun before I actually plug it in. Okay, so first thing you want to do before you hook up your gun or anything, make sure that your bleed valve is open. That doesn't mean that you unscrew this all the way, but it should be loose. That allows air to flow when it starts up, and it helps preserve the life of the compressor. The two things that kill these compressors fast is overheating. If you're running it for too long, filling too big of a pump. Again, the user manual will tell you how long you can run it. On these kind of units, it's typically 15 to 30 minutes at a time. And not having this bleed valve open. If the bleed valve isn't open, then the unit has to work a lot harder when it's building up that pressure because it's fighting against the air resistance or something along those lines, and it will wear out your pump faster. So don't overheat them, keep this open, and your pump will take care of you. So there you go. Next up, you've got your Foster fitting here. This will just clip on to here. Make sure it's on nice and tight. You pull the little ring back, slide it on, let go, and then make sure you can't pull it off. It goes onto your gun here. Almost every air gun will have a Foster fitting. If it doesn't, it probably came with a special adapter. Now, that's hooked up there. This is the Benjamin Marauder, the P-Rod, like pistol carbine version, whatever you want to call it. We have it set to 2,000 PSI right now, and we're going to fill it to 3,000 PSI. So that way it doesn't take too long, but it still gives people a standard to look for what it is that, you know, how well this pump will actually fill stuff. Now this one can be run off of batteries. It has these nice little battery connectors right here. If you're out in the field, you can run it off of your car battery, or off of a separate battery that you're going to carry around. But in this case, we're just going to be running off of the wall outlet. Plug that in. As soon as we plug this in, it's going to start up, and you probably won't be able to hear me. If you want to skip this portion, just skip ahead. Typically takes about a minute to come up to pressure, so just skip ahead a little bit. Okay, this is running. We'll make sure our bleed valve is open. I'm going to hit the power switch, and then close the bleed valve, and start the timer. Now that's done filling. I watch the gauge on my gun that I'm filling, or if it's a tank that I'm filling, I watch the gauge on that rather than the gauge on this, since it doesn't have an auto stop. But it does look like it's about accurate. 3,000 psi is right around 200 bar. Now you're going to come over to your bleed valve and let out the air, bleed out the air. Okay, and we went from 2,000 psi to 3,000 psi in just under a minute. That's actually a little bit faster than what I typically see these filling them at, so that's always good. Because this is just a rough gauge there, hopefully you can see that. The air did drop a little bit when I opened the bleed valve, but it has a bad valve. So I'm just eyeballing on each of these. Don't consider this a precise test, but it should be a good indicator. So that's basically all there is to it to use these. Make sure that your bleed valve is open before you start it. Make sure you don't run it too long, and they typically will work pretty well. I don't recommend these for filling large tanks. For filling a gun directly or like a really small fill bottle, that should work. But again, don't run it longer than what the manual says, typically about 30 minutes for these. And you can also keep an eye on your temperature gauge back here. Make sure that you're not overheating it. Some of these do have auto shutoffs for the temperature. I don't believe that this one does. But overall, a pretty good unit if you are okay with the caveat of not having an auto stop. Again, for me personally, I really like having an auto stop. I don't want to have to sit here and look at my machine and make sure that I'm not going to overfill and blow a burst disc or something like that. So for me, that's something that I like. But if you are okay with that, and you want to get a cheaper compressor, I think this is a great unit. It's built well. I like the steel construction. It's got all the nice features that you want, a built-in inverter, easily accessible stuff to fix it, and nice spare parts. I do wish it had a more heavy-duty filter on here. In fact, let me grab one as an example here. So this is a filter that comes with a lot of these units as well, but it is heavier duty. It's a much larger filter. Now for one, it lets you have actually more material in there to filter the air, but the biggest thing that I care about is the construction. You can see that the walls of this are much thicker. The threads are much more heavy duty, and I just trust this to hold 4,500 pounds per square inch of pressure more than these smaller ones. I personally have never seen one of these small ones break or explode, but I've heard stories of cheap filters exploding, and that's all I need to hear, me personally. I don't want a 4,500 psi piece of shrapnel going around, so I would invest in a bigger filter personally. But all in all, I think this is a good unit for the money. It's definitely on the more affordable side of things. You'll see a link down in the description to Amazon if you want to check it out. But if you want to get something that will fill larger tanks, I would look at our review of the big brother to this one, the A3, or even something like the GX CS4 or something like that. The CS4i is the one I personally use and really enjoy. But especially if you're just getting started out, I think this is a good unit. This is just obviously an unboxing and initial thoughts review, but I will have a more in-depth review, including a teardown, coming out sometime in the future. So subscribe, stay tuned if you want to see that, and let me know if you have any questions. I typically am pretty responsive in the comment section, and we'll get to them as fast as I can.